I recommend looking for better neighborhoods, lower price points so that you can really build value back into it. And the house that I bought to flip, I bought it because, that wouldn't necessarily be the area I would normally choose, but the price was great. I was like, well, I'm going to flip a black mid-century modern house. So
Sure.
There's some of that where you just kind of know what people will pay more for and what's kind of like a novelty type of house. So that's more important than, a specific neighborhood or area to me.
What's going on, guys? My name is Ryan Snaadt. It Rhymes with Odd, and welcome to the Rhymes with Odd podcast. Today we have a special guest. Kelsey Russell is in the house. Thanks for coming on the show, Kelsey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today we are talking about all things real estate, business ownership, and kind of just sharing like our personal connection and how we've known each other. So excited to have you on the pod today to talk about all those different things, investment real estate, and kind of all the different things that go into it. So
yeah, absolutely. Excited to be here.
awesome. So for the folks that, we've known each other for probably since like 2017, 2018.
Yeah, I think so we met it was a bodybuilding competition, actually. It was a friend of mine was competing and Ryan was doing all of the kind of, video of other competitors. So met through that. And then I actually had a series where I interviewed local people in Des Moines, just unique people, places, viewpoints, and just really was impressed by like your online presence, your business, and had you on as my guest. So kind of cool to see it come full circle.
Yeah. And so of course, when I launched the podcast, I'm like, gotta have Kelsey on the podcast and just keep it going here, keep the trend going. So, so it's kind of interesting too, because it was like 6-7 years ago when we first met. A lot of people like kind of bounce around careers and stuff. You're still doing real estate. So give the folks a little background on like how you got into real estate and kind of what that origin story was like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to Iowa State for architecture. Always loved houses, always loved kind of the blueprints and the background details of things. Got into the landscape architecture program. So you had kind of a year of design work, got into landscape architecture, did that for a year, and then just decided that I did job shadows. So that's one thing I always recommend to people too. Like a little side note is if they're asking about, what their kids want to do, I did a couple job shadows and realized very quickly that landscape architecture and just the architecture engineering world wasn't for me. I just need to be out and about. I need to see people. I need to make connections. So that was really big, just making that transition. So I started job shadowing. I knew I wanted to be in sales, interacting with people throughout the day, getting to use different skills. So I did a job shadow with a financial advisor and a realtor and just fell in love with the real estate aspect. For me, it's the thing that kind of combines all of my interests. So I love the analytical side. I love running calculations for investments or for people's, portfolio. But I also love getting to see people and being out and about, networking, business development. So real estate, and I love beautiful houses and blueprints, right? So real estate combined, all those things where you get kind of the financial aspect. You get to help people plan for the future, but you also get to see different houses and build business. So that was how I got into it. And then very quickly realized I was lucky to, come on with a great team. I was on a team for 2 years. I got to work for a builder, got to represent a bunch of different new construction houses, learn the custom build process. And then realized pretty quickly that I wanted to be on my own and build something of my own. So I started the Cornerstone Collective, which is our team, and started bringing on people. And the only regret I have with that is not doing it sooner. I think I'm a really big believer in right people, right seats, and how that can grow your business and that can just make everyone's life easier and give them opportunities. So yeah, that was the biggest thing, was just creating a brand that, I could really stand behind. That's one thing I appreciate about you, is that there's a lot of intention behind everything you do. And that was something with the Cornerstone Collective was, the name and the meaning behind that was important to us. So making sure that was, part of it.
For sure. No, and I think that's interesting just hearing kind of how you got into it. Because I know you've been doing, how long you've been a realtor for?
8 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point in your kind of career were you just working by yourself? Because for people that don't know, you have to be under a brokerage, right? You can't just be selling homes without being under like Keller Williams or 21st Century 21, or you're with RE/MAX, correct?
Yeah, I'm with RE/MAX Concepts. So you do have to be under a brokerage, but you can have your own brokerage. So I could have had the Cornerstone Collective, brokerage, not team. But the reason to be under a brokerage, our our overhead with the brokerage is very minimal, and they help with all of the accounting and paperwork and legal and all those things. So for me, there's no point in not being a part of it when it's so minimal and you get so much support and just the camaraderie and the agents and the culture. Our team has 7 agents and myself, and Concepts has over 300, and we're all over Iowa. So having those connections and having that camaraderie was huge. So that's the biggest thing, is you can definitely do your own. But for me, I like being a part of something bigger, and I like, the synergy that can come from that.
Sure, because with your, like, say the RE/MAX team, do you guys get together like as a region? So like all the agents that are under RE/MAX would get together annually or quarterly and do like your get-togethers or a conference, or like what benefits does that have for people?
Yeah, so RE/MAX as a whole is all over the nation. So they have a yearly conference. It's been in like Vegas and Florida. So every year we can go to that. They have training, they have events. And then within RE/MAX Concepts, our local brokerage, we have, I believe, 10 offices now around the metro, and then outskirts of Iowa have some other offices as well. I believe we do have one in Florida, I believe in Nashville as well. So they're expanding out. And with us, we do like monthly breakfasts. They have training. So you have to do, 36 hours of credit a year to keep up your license, and they provide that. So that's part of what they provide. So, each brokerage is a little different. The due structures are different, and the events and the support's a little different, but I've just always, you get what you pay for, and you get just the peers you want to work with. So for me, it's always a big like culture decision, and that's definitely the most important thing within our team as well. It's just having people that care more about the culture and how you treat the clients and how you treat each other than, the numbers of everything as much.
Sure, because I know if you're more of a transactional agent, that's not really like the long term, especially with yourself. Like if you want to be in this industry for a majority of your career, it's like, well, you can't treat all your first year people like crap because then they'll never come back.
Yes.
It's like people switch houses a lot, so it's trying to find
Yes.
the right combination of like getting good work done, but also like building connections with people too.
Yes, absolutely.
So in that vein, I wanted to ask a little bit about what was like the first year in real estate like versus now. Everyone talks, it's a sales job, right?
Yeah.
You have to be really hustling, and if you don't sell, you're not going to make anything. So walk me through kind of that first year that you were having your own kind of real estate company and figuring out how to manage all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Funny story. So I remember calling my father and being like, I am going to go into real estate. Like I turned down this great job opportunity, and I didn't tell them. So I had a job offer from Cerner, which is like it was a contract with the Department of Defense. So you would be able to do like business analytics and travel all over, and it would have been amazing. But you also had to travel Monday through Thursday every single week. And anyone that knows me well, I do not vacation. Like I like vacationing, but then I come back and I need a week to get back on my routine and
you
my
vacation
schedule.
From your vacation.
Yes. And I like love having a routine. I'm such a habitual person because like, you work hard, you play hard, but like I have to have my routine. So I had asked, take me back to the question you had asked.
Sure. I'd ask kind of what was that first year like when you launched the business, and what was your day-to-day like?
Scary.
Yeah.
It was scary, honestly, because I just told my folks, turn down the job and I'm doing this instead, because there's a lot of people that just don't have the desire to try in self-employed jobs, in commission-based jobs. And I'm definitely someone that I like security, and I like knowing that there is, there's job security, there's some sort of like guarantee, and real estate's not that. But I also am someone, I'm very loyal, and I knew that if I went to a company, and started there, I would never leave. Like I felt that I would climb the ladder quickly, and I would get into management, and I would do well, but I would never have my own thing. So I had to start, and that's the biggest thing is I tell people, I've interviewed now 51 agents that want to get into real estate. And we're very selective for our team. But the biggest thing I tell people is just be smart about it, like have a savings, have, a plan for, I'm not going to sell a house probably for 4 months is what I tell people, or I'm not going to get a commission check for 4 months, because you start and then you have a month of just, running around trying to get your license approved and your background check. And there's just logistics of everything getting set up. And even if you work with the best client ever and you find them a house in 2 weeks, they're still going to have 30 to 45 days to close. So, 3-4 months you might have where you're not getting paid. So it's just, it was scary. It was very scary, and it was hard to build a book of business. But it was also, I'm a big believer in, there's a Zig Ziglar quote that's like, if you can get everything you want, if you help other people get what they want. And I really live by that. And so just helping other people get what they want, plant the seeds. And I started with business owners. Like, that is why I interviewed you and some other people, is I just saw that if you put good into the community and you highlight good people and you build connections, that will return tenfold in the future. And that is what happened. It started slowly with client after client, and then positioning yourself with the right people. I started with an agent that was he would have been over 10 years in the business at that point. Their family owns multiple businesses around town. He had a builder I could represent. And it's funny, there's a lot of optics in real estate too. Like, I got to put my signs out and be a part of those listings. And so all of my friends and family are like, whoa, you've sold 30 listings in Ankeny. And it's no, those aren't my sales. Those are my team members' sales, but I'm a part of them, so you get a small portion of things and you align yourself with the right people and you learn, you pay your dues. So that was the biggest thing, is like, who you align with has a lot to do with what success you'll have. And my team members and our culture is very strong because they get that as well. Like, they work really hard, but they also get a lot of benefit off of being on a team and being in an established environment.
Sure. And I know a lot of people say, especially with sales, it's like networking's huge, and people always throw that networking. But I think it always looks different for different agents too, because like you said, if you have a certain avatar, we'll call them, or persona you're aiming for, whether it's business owners, first-time home buyers, new people that just moved to the city, that's all different strategies on like how you get in with those people. But I think something that you've done, which I always commend you for, is that you don't, I wouldn't say you're like hard selling very often. You're just always like being seen, which I think is such a huge piece to being like approachable by people, that you're like open door policy. Like, anytime you have a question, ask me, that type of thing. I think that's a lot better than knocking on doors and be like, you want to sell your house? Do you want to buy your house? Like, constantly like pushing it down your throat. Because I think it's definitely, when people are going through one of the biggest transactions they'll do, they don't want to be with someone that is only there for the commission. It's like, especially with the networking piece, like, if you sell someone a house in 7 years, they're probably going to move again. It's like, well, if they had a great experience and they feel like it was their idea to come to you in the first place, I feel like people would redo those and come back to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did do a lot of like video, social media, those things just to stay top of mind. But it was a lot of my content was answering frequently asked questions. So like, someone would ask a question that I get asked 5 times a week, and I would just make a video about those things, because my whole like strategy with social media is just add value, give information, educate people, and anything that they want to be a part of that story. So it's always like sharing client stories, sharing client questions versus, here's this house that you can buy. Like, yes, we market our listings very well, but that's not our approach for getting, new leads. And I completely agree with the networking aspect. Yes, I went to a lot of networking events that first year. You just want to get out there. You want people to know who you are. But after that, it's how can I help you win in business? If it's a business owner or if it's a client, how can I help you win? What do you need? And I mean, I really am known as someone that like has a resource for anything. Like, we need a roofer, call Kelsey. We need to know the local,
There's rats in my basement. Where do I call?
Yes, the video professional. Call Kelsey. She's got Ryan, So that's how I grew more than anything, is just being a connector. Like, I love connecting good people, and that's introduced me to some really, highly established people in Des Moines, and then it just grows from there.
Sure. Well, and even in our case too, Paige and I have recommended you plenty of times to people because a lot of people,
thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely. Well, and being from out of town, we didn't have, everyone's got a cousin or a third, twice removed neighbor's uncle that does it.
The 6 layers of Kevin Bacon.
Exactly. It's like everybody knows somebody. Yeah. So I think that's part of it too, is that we would just share our story, which I think is interesting. So I guess I haven't mentioned this. You were our agent for selling our house in 2020, which, let's talk about that market for a second.
Yes.
What a freaking crazy time to be selling real estate. Because I know we had listed, and our house, it was our first house, was under $200,000 list price. So I think that alone probably has like 4,000 people have email alerts when a new listing under 200,000.
Yes.
Like, let's
well,
go.
And
look.
yours was so unique because it was like that one street that's still a brick road. That's like the main thing I remember from your. I mean, obviously, I remember all the details of your house, but that little brick road, people just love the little nuanced, unique things like that with houses too.
Yeah, I think it's like one of the last brick roads in Des Moines, and it was ironic because the town I grew up in had all brick roads, and it's like super old, like on the river. So it was like little homey touches, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I think I want to say we had like 24 showings in like 48 hours or something. Like we just moved out for 2 days and just had people running through our house all the time, which was kind of crazy. So what was like, in your opinion, like what's been like the best season of real estate and the worst season, and how have you had to kind of manage that? Because I know a lot of people, if they get into the business in 2020 and they're selling a house every other day and like, this is insane. And, you know, then they think that's the average or the normal. Like, walk me through kind of the ebbs and flows of the business as the market changes.
Yeah. So best season for me was definitely like COVID, and the year after, I guess COVID just like officially, you know, ended. But those first couple years when COVID first started, because so many people, it was two things. People wanted office space because everyone was working from home. And if you've got, you know, 3 kids and you were in a 4-bedroom house, but now you need 2 offices, people wanted to expand. And people had a lot more disposable income because you're stuck at home. So you're not going out to eat. You're not going out and buying things as much. So you combine those two things and people's buying power goes way up, as well as their motivation going way up. So that was really big for us. There was just a huge surge of people wanting to buy, and people, you know, wanting to get into larger homes was the biggest thing. So that was by far the best couple years of real estate for me. And then the worst, I mean, the last year or so has been a lot slower just because interest rates have gone up a lot.
Because in the height of COVID, it was the lowest, like 2% was the lowest, or it dipped sub 2.
I don't think we got below 2 in our market, but at least I didn't have anyone that was quoted that. But yeah, I mean, they were extremely low. And that's the thing is your buying power is super, super high when your interest rate is that low. So, you know, people were moving a lot. Now we're looking at, you know, 6.5, 7. And I do think that'll, you know, even out in the mid to upper 5, 6s, you know, by the end of probably 2024. But, and don't quote me on that. I don't have a crystal ball.
We're definitely putting that in.
I know, put it in writing, sign off. But that's the thing is right now people's buying power is a lot less if you're looking at interest rates. But there's kind of two sides to every story. And I'm definitely not someone that there's a lot of realtors that'll say now's the best time to buy, and every day is the best time to buy because they just give you a different version of why. But there is something to be said for if you're someone that's going to be in a house for a long time, those are the people we're talking to now. Like I have just as many conversations telling someone not to move because the interest rate's super high and they're really not going to change their house that much, or there's not like a motivating factor, because like we do care about the overall financials and the long-term picture, because I don't want someone to buy a house at a 7% interest rate if they have a 2.5% interest rate right now to change, you know, 1 bedroom when they could add one into the basement. So
you're going to like double your mortgage every month for one little, not to mention all the pain of moving, like pack all your stuff up, get a moving crew, all the stuff. So
I always joke that like sometimes I'd like talk my people out of selling, and that's probably not the best strategy for a salesperson, but at the end of the day, like that's what I would want someone to do for me. And we care about the best situation long-term and having lifelong clients. But on the flip side of that, it is a really good time for people still when the interest rates are higher, if they're wanting, you know, a pretty large incremental change in what they're getting for a house, or they have to move. You know, people always have to move, whether it's relocation or you know, family growing and they just need more space. So the nice thing when rates are higher is purchase prices are normally a little bit lower and you don't have as much competition. So our people that are buying now, you know, a lot of them are getting really good deals on a property, you know, where they're getting a better purchase price. They're getting seller concessions. They're getting a lot of, you know, home warranties, home inspections and everything. I would never tell someone to ever waive a home inspection, but people did it, you know, in the market you were in. So there's always, you know, there's kind of a catch-22 on both ends of it, whether it's a good time to buy based on rates and inventory and pricing and all of that. So yeah, I mean, now it's slower because for most people, when rates jump up, you know, double or more, it's not worth it to sell right now. So.
Sure. No, I think that's interesting too. Because what would you say is like would now be kind of one of the more challenging times you'd said? So 2020 was kind of the peak of like of your career so far, of like best market. Like anyone could sell a house, where now it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it takes, like you said, a
have to- and
professional that's been through it so they can guide you through that process. Because like I'm sure the negotiations are a lot more tough now with the interest rates because the margins are so tight for people, or the mortgage is like just outside of the reach. It's like, okay, how can we, make this work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you just have to be more strategic and you have to be more creative. There's a lot of different options we can do on both sides, seller and buyer side, to make a deal work if both parties want to, so that is something that we get to do when the market's a little tighter, like you're talking about. You get creative and you make it work. And it really just you have to look at it, in my opinion, from a business perspective. Like there's so many realtors that are just acting as someone that buys and sells homes, but there's a whole nother, investment arm of it. And then there's other things from, scaling the business. So I've really looked at when things are a little bit slower, how do I help my team have some leads? How are, they work a lot of my buyer side sphere leads so that they have business going on and I can do more business development that makes the process better for everyone. So you look at your business development, you look at how to do more with your marketing, better marketing, how to scale, how to get the right people in the right seats. And that's something that with COVID, a lot of people, just kind of 2020 to 2021 time, a lot of people tried to do everything. And you also have to realize, like, if you don't have the right people in the right seats, sometimes you just have to drop things because we only have so many hours in a day. And like if you watch the trend of like my marketing fell off a little bit because we just were selling so many houses and it's like client experience always is number one. So our marketing fell off a little bit. Some other things fell off a little bit until you get the right people in to cover that. So that's the biggest thing, is just from a business owner perspective, how do I keep, client experience and client satisfaction number one? Then how do you keep the team running smoothly and happily? And then how do you do business development and the social media and some of the extra things that, we always post our clients' stories, but we like to fill in with other things, events and what's happening in Des Moines and all of those things. So you just have to edit, you have to edit. And I always have like a list of keep, add, or outsource. And so we were not adding anything and we needed to outsource more. And now we have more time to build out, the other aspects of stuff. So a lot of people, I think, in sales jobs don't look at it from a business perspective of when you have a slower season, that's actually a really nice time to build out systems and build out, your back end and your outsourcing.
Sure. No, I love that. And I think you mentioned multiple times, like bring on the team and the challenge with that. Walk me through kind of when you made the decision that, okay, I'm at my bandwidth's edge, like we have enough margin in the business, I can bring on another agent, or I can kind of like, I could take the time to train and develop someone, which is a completely different skill set than selling a house and closing deals. Walk me through kind of that process of how you first brought on your first person. Yeah.
So I had a team before my current team, and that was kind of a quick, I had 3 team members, 4 for a little bit, and then dissolved that team pretty quick. And it was all, amicable, civil, but it was just everyone wanted to kind of be an independent agent. And that's something I had to realize very quickly, is I attracted people that were drivers and that were
like you,
that were just like me and wanted to like be me and create the same thing. And so we all kind of quickly realized that like there was a lot more like clash than there was synergy in building out things, right? So when I switched brokerages, it was just kind of open door policy. You guys can do whatever you'd like. And so then I built another team, and that's a team I have today. So, double the size, culture's amazing. Everyone sees it from a perspective of, I want to be a part of this, and how can we build and how can we have synergy and grow from there versus, I want to learn this and replicate it. And neither are bad, both of them are good things, but I am really big on like, I want to outsource things. I want to build. And we built the team very differently because I've always wanted to have well-rounded agents. So a lot of teams have, team lead, and then there's a buyer's agent, a listing agent, someone that runs comps and does the back end stuff. And, it's very segmented. So we have an assistant, we have a transaction coordinator on the back end. We have some concepts people that the brokerage that also does, accounting and all the overhead type stuff. But I wanted every agent to know how to do all the things, right? Mm-hmm. So like every agent is a listing agent and a buyer's agent. And so it enabled me. The biggest thing that I did differently, if I can sum it up, is I give a lot better splits to my agents than a lot of people in town. But I expect them to operate how I would, which is a very high standard of what client experience would be and what our systems are. So it's, the same for everyone, and it operates like a business. So that was the biggest thing, is just figuring out like how you want your team to operate and what mistakes I might have made the first time around, and just biting the bullet and recreating a new thing. So that took some learning, and it's really just, I thought I had it all figured out and I didn't. And you start over and then you build something really wonderful. And I'm just so proud of the team I have now, because everyone truly, they care about the clients, number one, but if someone's going out of town on the weekends, like we have your business covered, and your client is just as taken care of as my client. And so they get to work a lot of my buy-side clients as well. So like if you guys were to sell your house again, one of my team agents would help you on the buy side. I would handle the listing side. So I do mainly just listings and business development. There's a few people that if I'm really, really close with them, I'll still handle the buy side. But it's to their best interest that I don't, just because my schedule is a lot busier than some of the people on the team. And it's just seasonality, of if someone has a client that's super intensive with showings and things, they're not going to be as available. And that's what people don't account for in real estate. Is I wanted it so that they could have the chance to make, good money and support their families, but also be very available for my clients on the buy side, so that I can do what needs to get done to get them the most for their house on the sell side. So really it's just figuring out what works for you. Like for me, I don't have the schedule capacity to handle buyers at this point and give them the best service possible. Because you've been in the market where you see a house and it's like, we need to see this now. Like in the next hour.
You're like, I'm eating dinner with my family, like, throw the kitchen fork on the ceiling, like, get going, get in the car.
And that is how it is, and that's how it's been for the last 8 years. Like, yeah, there's some adjustments, but really that's the thing too. When people complain about the market and how hard it is to be in real estate, like, I mean, we are nowhere near an 07, 08 situation. We have a very strong market. We have buyers and sellers. Things sell every day. So, it's not difficult, and we have been blessed to have, a lot of clients always ready to do stuff. So you just have to build out the team and the experience that you want people to have.
Sure. I think that's great. And it's interesting too, hearing your perspective, because I'm to the point in my business where I'm seriously considering part-time or full-time person to help me in like the next 6 to 12 months. And it's always like, you have to eat a slice of humble pie. Like you said, your first go at it, like there were some things that you would do differently. And that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like, I want to do it, but I want to do it right. I want to try to like make sure that I'm, when you transition out of like the actual producer in the business or the operator and become the management and the owner, like making sure that you're not changing who you are, but also doing things that, like you said, set your team up to succeed. So, hey, here's the level that we're expecting to operate at. And here's like guidance on how to be the best producer of whatever the service is in the business, rather than, hey, I need XYZ done, and then do it however you want, and don't, and I won't be here because I'll be in Cabo all month and have fun. Like trying to make sure that you're like there for them. Because I feel like once you become an owner or a manager, you're like, all of the different expectations are, it's not just I have to provide for the customers. It's like, well, I have to provide for them. I have to provide for your family. You have to provide for like, it's all the different things. Like everything changes. Yeah. What's been kind of your, the helpful, because did you bring you said you have 8 team members?
So 7 and an assistant, so 7 agents. Yep.
Okay, awesome. So did you bring all of them on at once, or was it like one at a time, and then once you had 1 or 2 trained, then you could do the next, or did you just bring them all on at once?
It was segmented a little bit, and people had different levels of experience, which helps. So, we've got myself, who has 8 years of experience. We have another team member that has 8 years that helps with some of the training. And we have one that has 3, and then the rest are under a year. So I care a lot more about the type of person they are and their drive and how well I think that they'll do with just being a self-starter. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to make it in real estate if you don't know how to socialize and you don't know how to build business. And I mean, it's equal parts like being social, being approachable, being someone that can get on social media and market a house. And do you have business acumen and the ability to build something out on your own, because I am definitely a very hands-off manager in the sense that I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. I'm very hands-on with client stuff. So like I am in the weeds of negotiations and inspections and addendums and stuff, but I'm not going to tell you how to run it. So for me, to your question of timeline, several of them, I mean, everyone joined within 6 months.
Sure.
So we've had this team for about 1.5 years for the longest member. And like I said, over the past like probably 3 years when I really started seriously building out a team, I've interviewed 51 people. So, I mean, I'm picky. And if I find that right fit and it's going to be a culture fit more than anything, then it doesn't really matter what time. Like I'll make it work. I'll work extra hours to train you. I'll do all those things because our culture is number one for me, and you have to be a team player. You know, everyone has their own things and their own niche. Like we have someone that works with several builders and really likes the build side and the client custom side. And then we have other people that love working, you know, some of our colder leads and just like the challenge of meeting new people and building rapport and really getting that sale. So everyone has their own kind of niche and their thing that they work, but really it's just knowing they're going to be a team player and they're going to do what's best for, you know, their clients and the team and each other. That's what I care about.
Sure. No, I love that. Switching gears a little bit, I know people a lot of times are talking about different ways to invest in real estate because it's a great method of doing that. What are some of the ways that you've helped clients and some of the ways you recommend for someone that if they're trying to look at real estate as like they've never actually done it, but they're looking to get into it? What are some of your suggestions for that?
Yeah. So first off, be very careful about the amount of risk you want to take on would be my first thing, because real estate investment can be an amazing vehicle to diversify your wealth and to build wealth, but it can also, you can lose very quickly if you do the wrong things or you take on too much. So, and the other thing I would say just like before we even dig into that is your personal property, like your primary residence, is a great investment. I think a lot of people, you know, I talk to people that I love Bigger Pockets and all the things online that tell you about real estate, but they're like, oh, I've been on Bigger Pockets and I need to buy a fourplex and I need to, you know,
house hack.
Yeah, I need a house hack and I need to do a live and flip and this and that. And then they, you know, they take out a $30K loan to do a flip on top of their, you know, like a renovation loan, and then they don't know how to have a production schedule or a contractor, and then they're underwater in it. So that's the biggest thing, is realizing that for a lot of people, your first and best investment is just looking at your first home you buy as what would be a good primary residence that would flip into a good rental. So I'm going to live in it, you know, whether it's a townhouse, make sure that, well, one, make sure you work with a really good agent that's going to like ask you these questions. Like that's one of our main questions we ask first-time buyers is, are you interested in investments? Like, do you want to know something that you could flip into an investment? So because we can always look at, if you're looking at a condo or a townhome for a first property, single family, you're normally fine unless there's a weird HOA. But condo townhomes, a lot of them don't allow rentals. They don't allow leases. So, or they don't allow dogs, or, you know, things that will really hurt you on getting renters. So that's the biggest thing, is like look at that first property as an investment and how you can build from there. You can do a lot of interesting things like cash out refinances and things too if you want to keep that property and use it to cash flow other properties. So that, and then, you know, you can do a bunch of different vehicles, but there's kind of a few main ideas I like people to understand, is just the different ways that you can build wealth from real estate investing, like the different types of investments and the different ways you can build wealth. But it's also looking at, like, the biggest thing I can tell people is have good partners. So have a good realtor you trust, have a good contractor, or have a good realtor, and then they'll give you lenders, contractors, vendors, all those things. If they're really into investment side of stuff, they should have people that they trust to be your contractor, to manage a production schedule, to do all those things. If you were to do a flip, or you were to do a lot of people don't think about, if you buy and hold a rental, you're still going to have work to do to it to make it up to par with like what the current market is looking like for renters if it's a resale home.
Right.
So having the right connections to get those vendors and get the people that can give you good numbers, because if you don't know your numbers, then you're not going to like being in investments. So, what's your cap rate on a property? What's going to be the cost to renovate the property? What's the cost of property management? Are you going to manage it yourself? Like, there's just a laundry list of questions that are very basic once you've done one, but like you just don't think about sometimes. And then I like to just like tell people, because a lot of people don't realize if they've never thought about real estate investing, the different ways to capture money basically with real estate. So you've got, just your cash flow, which everyone thinks about initially. So if I have, this mortgage expense and these other expenses on this property and I'm renting it out for X amount, take it what you're renting it out for minus all the expenses. So that's your cash flow. What a lot of people don't think about is equity capture. So if you're in a down market and you buy a property and it's going to be worth more than what you bought it for, or it's currently worth more, that's equity capture. That's great. Then you have appreciation over time. You have a lot of really good tax benefits, especially with rental properties. So I always tell people, I'll give you the very basic and talk to your CPA on that. But there's several different ways that you can, build value and build money. But a lot of people just look at cash flow. And it's like, even if you're only cash flowing, like a lot of people want to cash flow $500 a month on a property. That's not very standard, especially with interest rates the way they are now today. So it's like, if someone else can pay your mortgage on that and you can break even, that's still a good investment a lot of times.
Sure. Because even in that situation, like, yeah, $500 a month, passive. I mean, I love passive income. Everybody says that. But the furnace goes out on month 12, it's $6,000. There goes all of your profit from the entire year. But to your point, you're gaining equity. You've been holding it for the long. Like the property is appreciating. Like you think of other investments, it doesn't, like, there's not as many benefits in that side where it's like, yes, you can go underwater, but there's a lot more structure to that. And the assumption is a property is going to appreciate over time. You would hope anyway, unless there's other circumstances to it. But
and the biggest factor, like your real estate agent is very important, but it's also important if you're serious about getting into investments on a higher level, is having a good CPA, because they're going to be able to tell you, what your tax benefits are and what your, what your benefits are in other aspects, or how you can mitigate losses or things that happen. And then just thinking about what level of stress you want to have. A lot of people, like I am very big on no stress with investments.
You like your sleep, it sounds like.
I just have enough things going on in other areas that with investments, for me, it's like I probably pay more than I should on like a contractor or a management fee or something like that, because I'd rather just not think about it. That's one thing I think people get into investments and then they get overwhelmed and they regret it because they take on too much, And so our clients, a lot of them are more, they're out of state or they're well established and they have a lot of cash on hand to deal with the furnace going out and this and that. But that's one thing that, like, we have a lot of people that they have many properties and someone manages them. So those are the best type of investors, because it's like, I'm just going to pay a property manager. I'm not going to deal with it. Or people that are like, I'm going to do a full flip, or I'm going to do a live and flip, and I like doing it. I mean, I think about you and Paige. Like, Paige loves doing those things. So,
oh yeah, she's always like, let's just buy another house and I can flip it. I'm like, no.
Right. And so it's like, choose your adventure, right? So I bought a flip, and for me, I have a contractor that I'm hiring to do all of the work because I don't want to deal with managing it. Like, he, owns a home renovation company, is a GC basically, and manages all of it. If I was running a production schedule as well as running a real estate business, I would not enjoy doing a flip. So, you pay a lot more to do it that way. But I also, had equity capture. I bought it off market for a very good price.
When did you close on that? Was that this year or last year?
May of this year.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's been a couple of months then. Okay.
Yep. So goal is to have it done in like 4 to 5 months. So you can get, and that's the thing, you can get something done quicker, but my contractor has multiple going on at a time. And so you're going to pay a premium if you're the only project they're working on. So that's where you want to look at too, what are my holding costs monthly? And timing the market, you don't want to sell a house in December. So although I'm not running the production schedule, you have to be mindful of, okay, a lot of people just think, okay, I'm going to have 6 months of holding costs potentially, but like, what value are you giving up if you're selling that home in December versus September? So that's the things we help people think about, whether it's a flip or, buying or holding a rental property, is just looking at, having them talk to their CPA on the different tax differentiations, and then like, when are you going to sell it if you do a flip? Who's your contractor? What are they going to charge you? What are your holding costs? And just helping them kind of build out that estimate and, itemize all those things, because there's just a lot that you don't think about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because in the house that you bought, which area of Des Moines is it in?
So it is almost to Pleasant Hill, like Copper Creek area.
Oh, sure. Yep. That's where Paige's parents were before they moved to Ankeny. So,
yeah.
Because I'm trying to think, a lot of people, they always say like, buy the worst house in the best neighborhood type of thing.
Yeah.
But obviously there's other factors to it too. It's like if you're doing the rental side, it's like there needs to be some kind of attraction that would bring a short-term rental.
Yes.
It's got to be a vacation area or a lake or some reason, like there would be travelers that need to stay somewhere. If you get a rental house in like Kearney, Nebraska, and it's like, well, who the hell's going there unless, stuff like that, trying to find the right thing that makes sense.
We've been working with some Airbnb clients lately, and that is a whole nother type of thinking for like, when are people going to be in town? What are they going to be here for? How long will they stay? Because there's just so much potential in those. But again, I mean, each situation's different. So yes, you definitely look for, I recommend looking for better neighborhoods, lower price points so that you can really build value back into it. And the house that I bought to flip, I bought it because, that wouldn't necessarily be the area I would normally choose, but the price was great. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of wiggle room with margin and with what I'm trying to make off of it. And it's a mid-century modern, just like beautiful facade. So there's just people pay a lot more for, black mid-century modern houses. And so I was like, well, I'm going to flip a black mid-century modern house. So there's some of that where you just kind of know what people will pay more for and what's kind of like a novelty type of house. So that's more important than a specific neighborhood or area to me, if the numbers are there.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think interesting connections, like one of my really good friends, he was in my wedding. He owns a construction business in Boone, and they built it's like 1861 farmhouse. It's they flipped the whole property. It took like 3 years to convert the whole thing to a wedding venue. But they also built on-property lodging because there's no hotels in Boone. And then they're like, well, it's the winter. So they bought this dumpy flip house and like converted that. And they're like, well, maybe we should like buy another one and just hold it, and then we could rent out to the people that are using the venue.
Yeah.
And like just have, well, if there's overflow, if you guys want a house that sleeps like 10, you could rent our house from us or whatever. So it's interesting like how you mix and match, because obviously like real estate investing makes a lot of sense for you because you have 8 years of knowledge in this area. I feel like a lot of people get into real estate not knowing anything and without like going through the paces of like learning things or asking the right person or paying for a consultant to like teach them what to do. Because everyone always talks about it, but it's always like you said, the guy on the internet or on the podcast said, I should do this. I should do this.
And it's so situation dependent. Like I just have a little bit of an issue with anyone that's like, look for this cap rate and look for this, area and this specific formula. Because like, yes, that all makes sense in theory, but there's a lot of times where there's two main things that I tell people to look for, because there's so many differentiating factors that can come up, and there's so many unique properties that like won't fit in your box of what you're looking for that are a great investment for whatever reason. So I always want to know what level of stress and work do you want to take on, because we have two different types of investors for sure, and everyone does, where it's like I have a lot of money and I want to diversify it somehow. And then there's people that are like, I like to get my hands dirty and I'm not afraid of work.
My favorite show is House Hunters, HGTV, like that type of person.
Yes, right? Yes. And so that is two very different people to me, because there's people that, and these people too, that just have the funds and they want to diversify. A lot of them are fine paying a contractor, but like I have to guarantee some sort of return for them to feel comfortable with that. So that's really where you have to know your numbers. You have to know your contractors. But it really comes down to like having those two lists for us. And so there's people that I want it turnkey and I want to know a return number. And we just, we find properties that are listed super low for whatever reason, or some sort of familial thing happened that they just need it sold in a week. So that's kind of one list of investors for us, where numbers are more guaranteed. I'm not going to do work, but I've got funds up front. And both sides can have funds up front, but it's just two sides of thinking with like what stress and what work do I want to take on? And then we have people that are more, the flipper, I'm going to do some work and keep it and rent it, but there's work involved for sure. And those are, another list of, hey, this property had a fire, but it's selling for $60,000. Like we don't know anything about it, but here's the opportunity. Do you want to know more? So you have the people where it's what amount of risk and work do you want to take on is one kind of side of the coin. And then also what amount of cash do you have to cover your losses? Because, we go to sheriff sales for some people and you are not allowed to go look at the property. You're not allowed to do a lot of things. You don't know without we can do title searches and we can do things to look at liens and everything, but you never know for sure.
You're just in the front yard and there's an auctioneer being like, do you want this house? Like, take it as is. The inside could be a crater in the floor, or like, you don't know. Like, it could be anything.
And that's the thing, is a lot of those you're buying at such a discount that, like, even if you run into huge problems, then you're still probably going to come out okay. But like, I'm very cautious who I introduce to some of these options out there, because I'm not going to be responsible for someone not having the funds and the risk, ability to take something like that on.
Sure. I know, like, my in-laws, they got their original house in Donaldson, where we're from, like 25 years ago.
We're from Donaldson. That's where I got my puppies.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's where we got our border collie as well.
Yeah.
It's from a family friend down there. But she, or the in-laws, they got their house on auction for like $25,000, in the 90s. And it's like, then they come into like current market value, $200,000, $400,000, $600,000 for a house. I'm like, well, yeah, you got your house at like they're just selling the farm type thing. I'm like, it's so different when you're doing an auction buy compared to other things too. So,
and that just like brought up a thought in my head too, though, is there's a lot of people that when they see higher interest rates, they're terrified to move, but they really want to. And a lot of times they just haven't really thought through it. And that's where I'm like, just ask the question. Like, we're super low pressure, but I've been surprised how many people just mentioned to me out in passing somewhere, like, hey, we really want to move. We really need more space, or we really need to downsize, but rates are so high. A lot of the times people don't think about, like, if you've lived in a house 20 years, you're probably going to owe very little on your mortgage. And then you're probably still going to have a lower payment if you, put that proceeds down on the next house. People don't think about that. If you're only paying 7% on $50,000, that's not a big deal, versus what it would be, and then you can probably get a better price on the house and things like that. So,
sure. Or if the rates go down, just refinance the loan later. Like, that helps to get where you want to be. I know everyone always says that, like, oh, I'll wait till the market, but also it's got to work for you. Like, if you have a job that's, hey, we need you move across the country. Well, let me just wait a year till the market might change or things might happen.
We always say marry the house, date the rate is a good way to look at it. In a market like this. So
sure. No, that makes total sense. I think one of the other things I wanted to mention too, we talked about it off camera a little bit, your work-life balance now compared to previously. Because when we were working with you for our house, I was always telling Paige, I'm like, I'm so happy she's working so hard for us, but damn, girl, go to sleep. Like, put your phone down. Like, because there would be times where, like, we were negotiating stuff and it was like midnight. But I get it, because it's like the fire's hot. They're wanting to get a response. And if you reply quickly, then you can close faster. Like, I totally get that. So talk to me through about, like, how you naturally are as, like, a workhorse of a person, and how you've had to kind of reposition your mindset as you've grown the team to kind of figure out a new way that you can live your life so you're not just glued to work all the time, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So a couple things I will say with that is, one, getting deals under contract is just thrilling for me because, like, that's such a fun thing for your client, and then it enables them to do their next thing. So I will probably always be the person that's, like, up at midnight, like, finalizing a deal. But outside of that, it was a really big lesson in – it was a me thing. Like, honestly, I had to realize that I'm a big believer in the saying, you train people how to treat you. And I have always had amazing clients. Like, I have nothing bad to say about any of my clients, but there are some people that just don't think that we don't need to talk about this at 10 p.m. if it's not urgent at all, and we could talk about it at 9 a.m. tomorrow, And so I am someone where, you can't constantly respond to people at 10 o'clock at night if you don't want them to reach out to you at 10 o'clock at night.
Sure.
So just setting better boundaries in it's boundaries and just expectations with clients of, how long a showing is and when we're available and what our schedules are like, and, when's the appropriate time to talk about, included items or whatever it is, versus the more urgent things that we're always available for. So it's just, having good expectations with clients, working with the right clients also has been big for me. I would say 95% of my clients are amazing, but there are a couple where I close and then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to add you to my follow-up list as much, just because it's just a general respect thing. So that was big on work-life balance, was finding the right team members, finding the right clients, working with the right type of, different lead potentials and opportunities. There's so many ways you can connect with people in real estate, and certain things I was doing in the past just weren't worthwhile anymore. You had to do them initially to build that business. And then it's learning how to let go of, the pillars of your business that are no longer serving you, or learning how to outsource the things that aren't worth your time, in the sense that if I can pass something off to a team member and help them with their business, and then I get time for personal life or time to develop the business in a different way. So really it's just getting out of my own way and finding the time to look at high level things and what am I going to keep at outsource cut, looking at those things. Getting a coach was big too. I had a business coach, kind of business and life coach, that she always challenged me to have a soul line and a goal line. And I loved that because it was like you had to plan and schedule in things for like your soul and your personal life just as much as you did for business and work. And that was big. I think it's just how you're raised and how you were brought up is a big part of it. And, I grew up with, my dad has 6 brothers, and I mean, they didn't have running water or electricity growing up. So you learn like that workhorse mentality. And I love working because I've never known anything else, right? And so, but I also watch my father, and he cannot like slow down or stop or relax ever. And I think there's a lot of people that grew up in his generation that just don't, because if that was your only option, like you just don't know how to relax and have free time. And so it's been a lot of just me learning, like you have to give yourself permission to live your personal life just as much as your work life. And I'm lucky to still love my work life. So that makes it even harder to find balance sometimes. As far as logistics of it, just having like a hard stop time. Mm-hmm. So like it sounds so silly, but like I drink a glass of water every day at 6:00. And unless it's like urgent, I try not to work after that.
That's your like ceremonial, I'm done for the day.
Yes. Okay. Yep. And then you have to be realistic with yourself though too. Like I'm really big on time blocking. Like I do not set meetings before 9 a.m. because I get up and I work out, and I have like, I'm super OCD. So like my house has to be all put together, and like I'm one of those people, my space has to be the way that it needs to be in order to be efficient and productive with work.
Sure. So come home from a crazy day and your house is like crazy. Yes. Yeah, I get that.
Yep. So like you have your, your morning routine, whatever you need to do for you. And I don't take meetings before 9. Unless, there's something crazy urgent, I don't do anything after 6 unless I'm like showing a buyer. Or it's going to like really help me to get it done. Mm-hmm. And you just schedule it in, at 4:00, I have a hard stop to figure out what I need to get done in the next 2 hours to be done by 6. So it sounds so elementary, but it took so long to figure out like what those 2 or 3 things are that I need to do to show up best in my life. And I just know for me, like I need me time from 6 to 9 so I can work out and I can have, my lists and my routines or whatever. But it's so hard to like set aside the time to figure out what those things are for you personally.
Sure. No, I totally agree with that because that's one of the things because I worked full time for 4.5 years before I went off into my business. So my routine back then, I have YouTube videos of it, and it's kind of scary to watch like, oh yeah, I'd get up at like 6 a.m, go work out, go work my 9 to 5 all day, come straight home and work from like 7 to 10 o'clock at night for my side business and just do that every single day for 3 years. But like to your point, I love the thrill of it. I love the idea of building something. But then when I went off my own, I realized like I can make my own schedule, and Paige had to really kind of dial me back of like, you don't have to be in the office from 9 to 5. Like you can do whatever you want. So there's days like Mondays and Thursdays, like I'll go to the gym at 6. So I leave here by 4. But then there's days like today where I'm doing another podcast later on today, so I can't go to the gym. So I went this morning. So it's like just having the flexibility to do that, I think is huge. But then having your non-negotiables is so key because for me, like I've gotten to the point now where I will not work Sundays. I won't shoot. I've had so many clients that are like, if it's has to happen or I'm an out of town shoot, it's like double the rate because it's like, this is my only like guaranteed day with my family to make sure that we can just like be a family and have fun time. So I think having those things, if you'd said a phrase earlier, like you train people how to treat you. Yeah. I think if you are upfront with people on what your expectations are for work, I think that helps a lot.
Yes.
So for me, I'm like, I rarely give my cell phone to clients ever because they'll call me, text me any hours of the day or the night, where you're probably the opposite. You're like, give me that number right now. Yeah. But I'm like, do it all over email. That's my thing. And then I don't tell certain people like where my business location is because they just want to show up and like hey, that video you sent me, can we like walk through it? I'm like, there's a system and a process to do that virtually. You don't have to just show up here. So there's things like that where you get a couple, like you said, a couple bad eggs that abuse your time or your effort, and then you have to put those in there. But I think that helps like safeguard your time, because that's the one thing we can't get back is if you're super inefficient with your time, it's like, well, crap, now I just wasted this whole week and I can't get it back, you know?
Yes. Well, and I 1000% agree with that. And one thing I had to get over mentally was like this fear that like I would have anxiety if I had to tell a client no to a showing or something because I already had plans. But
you don't want to like disappoint them or make them like, oh, I'm going to like, we're firing you and we're moving on or something. Yeah.
Or I would feel like I would have to outsource them to a team member. And it's a muscle like anything. Like setting boundaries is hard. But what I realized is like they don't care. And something my broker taught me is telling people why. Like he would say, hey, I promised my kids I was going to take them to the pool. Like I can't talk to you tonight. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, take your kids to the pool. No problem. So like telling people like, hey, I have a life, I have family, I have commitments, I have, friends I need to see. I think that was a great practice for me to start doing. And just it really was eye-opening to me when I thought about who I respect most and who I want to be around as far as just like people and just life and business. And the people that respect themselves and their time and their family time are the people that I look up to the most. And so people that won't respect that for you, you just kind of have to figure out who you want to align with. Mm-hmm. And that was a big lesson for me is I had a couple, like my coach was like, no, I can't meet. These are the 2 times I can meet. And I was kind of frustrated because I was like, well, no, like, and it's big, people that you want to be around and you enjoy being around normally really do respect their time. Sure. And yours.
Sure. And when you get to a certain level in business, you can say no, you can see those problem clients a mile away and be like, and I can probably give you 30 different excuses on people that I've sent away that are like, we're too tight on bandwidth. We don't have enough bandwidth, like whatever it is, because you can just see those coming. And I had a recent client here a couple weeks ago that I was working with that I was just the whole time, like you said, I am never going to work with them again.
You are not going on my follow-up list.
Exactly. So it's like you live and learn on like the types of people you want to attract. But I think that's also a part of it too, is just putting out into the world what you want to get back. It's like if I want to work with business owners or high net worth people, it's like align with those people, do the things they do, be around them, and you'll attract them.
And just live your personal life with people you enjoy as well. Like that's one thing that it took me so long to like really lean into my personal life when we have free time, because business owners don't know what free time is, So when I had free time, it was like, okay, go do something I want to do personally. And that's brought me more business than I would have ever expected. When you're not looking for it, you're not seeking it out, you're just, enjoying your life with people you enjoy being around.
Sure. No, I love that. People always said, I had a former coworker of mine that broke up with his girlfriend. He's like, I don't know how to meet people. I'm like, well, what do you do in a day? Well, I come to work and I go home. It's like, well, you're never going to meet anybody. If you like, same thing in business. It's like, if your goal is to meet new people, it's like, well, you could go out for drinks and then you happen to run into someone, because that happens all the time. Mm-hmm. Paige and I will be out. It never fails. I'll just be at an event or looking around. I'm like, oh, hey, look who it is. And then you're like, oh, just start talking with people. So that's kind of the funny thing is whenever I go to the airport, I always see someone that I know. And I'm not even like super, super well connected in Des Moines. You're probably the same way. If you go to like a Chamber of Commerce event or a real estate event or something, you'd see people But I think that just helps to kind of be top of mind and whatnot. I would also say the other piece is like being who you are in real life online is really like things people don't think about. Because I've met people that are like, you're exactly like you are online. I'm like, why would I be any different?
Right.
That's like, I want to be like this fake version of myself. Like, that's kind of stupid. And it's exhausting to be fake about it,
Yeah, and I've always just like had people tell me how approachable I am. And I think that is why, because if you're authentic and if it matches, then people just feel comfortable, I think. So totally agree. That's super important.
Sure, absolutely. Well, to tie it all together, I think it'd be interesting to hear a little bit more about like what your vision for the brokerage is here in the next couple of years. I mean, you're talking about, doing a flip house. Now you have a couple employees. Like, what's kind of your vision for what is to come here in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got, my team operates out of our Waukee office, and I've, told my team members from day one, someone has to want it, and want to lead people and have management experience. But my goal would be to have a Cornerstone Collective team in each office locally, and then eventually branch out into
locally here in like different markets in Des Moines?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we've got 10 offices in the metro. So, having an Urbandale team led by someone, that had the training and management experience, and then me just oversee all the teams. So there's a lot of teams that kind of have like a mega team where there's not a lot, but there's a couple teams in Iowa where there's, 30 plus agents on the team. And I'm just a big believer that once you get above probably 10, you can't have the level of synergy and the level of just compassion and care for each other as people. And, our team is really like a family. I mean, everyone looks out for each other and enjoys coming to work, and you have peers and you have that camaraderie. And that's something that's hard to find in real estate. Like, people really have a dog eat dog mentality for a lot of things. So my goal would just be to, keep the culture, grow slowly, but grow the right ways, have people manage, different teams within the metro, potentially branch out to other states eventually. I'm just a big believer in like the smaller team having a really strong leader in each area, but having the network to, bounce ideas off each other and refer people back and forth. A lot of people have done that nationally with builders, where they'll have, a builder, and then they'll kind of branch out with different names for types of builds. So they have kind of different series based on price point and everything.
Right.
So, potentially partnering with a builder at some point and building out something like that in Des Moines I would be open to as well. But really it's just the right people, having the right people and building the right way. We've always been intentional on growing slowly and growing intentionally versus just having people in seats. Because once you get over like 10 people, no one's voice is really heard, and there's just not a lot of growth and scale that can happen in an authentic way, in my opinion. I've always been a believer in you can't have buy-in without weigh-in. So if people's voices aren't heard, they're never going to really feel like they're part of it, and that's something that they can put their name on as well. And that's the main reason for the name change. Like, I was Russell Real Estate for the first 4 years I was in business, and then changed the name to the Cornerstone Collective. And I wanted something that everyone could own. Taylor or Amanda or George or whoever on the team, like, they are the Cornerstone Collective to their clientele. It's not Kelsey's team and George is just, a person in a seat on it. So that was intentional. And then I like to tell people like why we chose that name, just because that was really meaningful to me. So in building, the cornerstone is the corner piece, like an ancient building where without it, the rest of the foundation would crumble. And so that's what we tell people is like, we want to be foundational in your real estate experience. Like, I've always been a big believer in be worth knowing rather than well known. And so we are well known because we've been in the business, 8 years, and we do right by people, but we just want to be a really good connection. We want to be worth knowing. We want our people to, feel really good about referring us.
Sure. There's been so many like name drops for like bumper sticker phrases in this conversation. I feel like we should just start a whole like you should do that. Get a bunch of like all the little phrases and put your logo on it. That'd be really cool. So it's kind of interesting. Just having a vision for the brand, I think, is so key because a lot of people are kind of floating through. I've talked with many business owners that are like, what do you like? You're near retirement. Like, any plans for succession? Haven't really thought about it. I'm like, you're like 70. Go home. Like, go do something. Go fishing every day. Whatever the heck you want to do. I think it's just interesting having like a vision for it because I think that's the fire that can be under you. So it's not just a endless hamster wheel of work. It's like what are we working towards? I think that's always key to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that surprised me about just like realtors in general is you look at financial advisors or insurance or anything, like there's always a book of business that gets sold. And real estate's one of the only industries where no one has an exit strategy and no one, sells off their book of business, which is very odd to me, and a lot of people, maybe they're just not good at tracking it and having follow-up.
Well, there's a lot of value if like you said, hey, in 10 years from now, and you take all your leads and say, hey, someone could buy this business, the systems, everything that goes to it. And then you just do a soft introduction to all of those people and say, hey, I'm getting out of the business. This is a trusted person I'm handing it over to. You're in good hands. Like, there's so much value in that than someone just starting from the ground up. You're basically transplanting your tree, sticking it in someone's yard, and then putting like little seeds and be like, well, maybe in 10 years this will be big. It's like they could just take the advance you've already done and go with it. So
yeah, that's been my plan all along. Like, I people think I'm this like bubbly, approachable gal, but I am like such a systems person on the back end. Like I just nerd out over systems and follow up and stuff. So that's always been an approach for me too, is just, have those resources, have good follow up, have good client communication, so that you can do that, whether it's, different people in different offices or selling the whole book to someone to manage. But it's definitely a missed opportunity in real estate for sure. So
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the show and coming on and sharing all your insights. I appreciate it. So we'll have to let anybody else know, like where can they find more of you if they're in the Des Moines area, they're looking to buy or sell, where can they go to find more out about you?
Yes. So our website is thecornerstonecollective.co, and then Instagram, The Cornerstone Collective as well. Facebook, The Cornerstone Collective Real Estate Team.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to the Rhymes with Odd show. My name is Ryan Snaadt, It Rhymes with Odd, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.